Okay, one of the things that experienced magicians tell more beginners such as myself is to make what they do more than just about tricks. Okay? So what do they mean by that? What they mean is I can perform some card manipulations here. You may like them, you may not. It depends. But I have a better chance of making a connection with you, and particularly emotional connection, if I can use the magic to tell a story. Right? Then it's possible to do magic with meaning. So I'd like to do some magic for you now, and I'd like to tell a story through that. Okay. So this is going to be a story about life. And one of the things that there is in life is quite a bit of chance. Okay. So I'm going to spread these cards out. And Abby, I'm going to run my finger here. And I just want you to say stop wherever you would like me to stop.
Okay. Stop.
Okay. Here?
Yeah, back a bit.
Here?
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. Here. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to take some cards out from here. Okay. So we've got card number 1, card number 2, card number 3, and card number 4. Abby, which of these cards would you like? Number 1, number 2, number 3, or number 4?
Number 3.
So that's this one here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So in life, trust is very important. We need to rely on other people all the time. And in the age of COVID, right, it's very interesting the way in which trust operates in our day-to-day interactions. Okay, you walk into a shop, there are some people there, you're going to get close to them, right? They may turn around and look at you and think, "Oh, what are you doing so close to me?" And you think, "Hey." So, trust is kind of ever prevalent in our interactions these days. So anyway, for this effect, I'm going to need you to trust me because I want to show you what this card is, but I need to convince you that I'm not going to look at it, okay? So in this case, I'm going to look away and I'm going to show it to you, okay? And let me know when you've seen the card and you've got it memorized. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm turning away.
Oh, could you move it a bit closer to the screen? Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, have you got it then?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so I am a magician. Okay, so I'm going to be deceiving you quite a bit in our time together. But the thing is that I'm an honest liar. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that if I tell you that I'm telling you the truth, then you can assume I am. But otherwise, you can assume that I'm trying to deceive you in some way, okay? But genuinely, I didn't see your card and I don't know what it is, okay? Yeah, so let's do something together here. I said this effect was going to be about life. And in life, there are lots of things that come up, things that kind of throw us this way, throw us that way. Our plans can get mixed up in all sorts of ways, right? And yeah, things can get difficult. But some days are worse than others, and some days everything gets a bit topsy-turvy. And it's at this stage where you think, well, it's not going to get any worse than this. Okay? But it's just at that moment where things really go all kind of messed up. Okay, so Jeff, have you had any days like that?
Well, I try to be enough of a pessimist to avoid this, but I can't say I always succeed.
Yeah, once or twice, okay, maybe we've had days like this in our lives.
Can't lie, can't lie.
So what do we try to do when things get messed up, right? We try as best we can to bring some order to our lives. Yeah, try to hold things together. But you know, right? As soon as you start kind of looking around, some things are up, some things are down, things are this way and that. So what do we try to do? We try to hold everything together as best we can. Okay? But you know, right? You know that once you start looking around, okay, some things are up, some things are down. Some things are up, some things are down. All sorts of ways. Okay, we've got things this way, we've got things that way. Everything's a little messed up. So in this situation, what can we do to bring some order to the chaos of our lives? Anyone have any suggestions?
Well, it seems like first thing, clean your room. And then after you do that, then it's time to make that deck sort of sort itself out so that the cards are all facing the same way. And it would be particularly classy as a sort of an extra fill up on top if you could possibly make the card that Abby picked out appear at the top of the deck or somewhere in it at the very least.
Okay, that would be quite something, right? Okay, but how are we going to do that? That seems to require lots of skill or something. Anything we can draw on here, anyone can imagine, to help us sort out this mess into some sort of order? Magic?
Yes.
Yep.
So Paul, do you know any magic words?
Shazam.
Shazam. Okay, so can we give a Shazam to this deck, everyone? A collective
Shazam.
Shazam?
Shazam.
Okay, and if I spread out the cards, kind of interesting, right?
Oh.
Spread them out a little bit more. And lo and behold, as you requested, Jeff, all the cards have turned over and they are now all face up.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. What have you done there? What's in the middle?
Well spotted. Okay, so there is a card here. I wonder, Abby, could this be your card? What was your card?
9 of clubs.
9 of clubs. And it is the
Hey.
9 of clubs. Ta-da! So magic, how is it done? There's a lot going on here in terms of how magic happens, right? And I just want to spend a few minutes getting us to kind of think through some of the ways in which magic takes place, right? There's a need for me on the one hand to convince you about these cards, right? That they're not just somehow, I don't know, cards with kind of multiple sides, like 3 or 4 sides or something, right? And yeah, we need to convince you that they're just ordinary cards with 2 faces. Face up, face down, yeah, and something interesting has happened. But there's also a lot of kind of social technology as well we might refer to, and that's the kind of technology of witnessing. So witnessing is a contested concept in entertainment magic because magicians often debate amongst themselves about what counts as good magic. And one of the ways in which they do that is to argue that other magicians have lost the ability to see magic from the point of view of a kind of lay audience. And indeed, there's a kind of almost kind of learned incompetency with magic. The more you know, the more you become interested in sleights and how they're done, the less ability you have to see magic as a lay audience would. So magicians often critique other magicians for being too preoccupied with, you know, kind of whatever kind of fancy techniques and this kind of thing. And this whole idea that they have lost the ability to understand what's really important about magic. And likewise, there's also discussion about audiences and how perceptive they are. Because, okay, you may not know much about magic, so you don't know what to look for. But audiences as well can be very perceptive in spotting, say, when magicians tense up, when they get worried, you know, concerns about like how they're performing. And so even if audiences don't know exactly what's happening, they might know that something of significance is happening. But how often do they know this, and how? And this is something that's discussed a lot within magic. One of the things that I'd like to talk to you about is how you're experiencing what we're doing together. So we're doing this as something over Zoom, remotely. It doesn't allow you to see me in the same way you would if we were face to face. And so I'm wondering how convincing you find this kind of Zoom magic. Do you feel, in a sense, that you're able to see everything you need to see? Are there things you would want to see that you are not able? How convincing overall do you find this kind of performance?
Well, this reminds me of the work of the sociologist Irving Goffin, who talks about this relationship between front stage and backstage. And for him, this is a sort of a more general feature of all social interactions. And he talks about a sort of social dramaturgy. But I think it's particularly interesting to think about the concept of front stage and backstage in a world of Zoom, and then also in the context of magic itself, and the way that magic, in a certain sense, obviously sort of relies on a backstage in which the magic, quote unquote, actually happens, but then also kind of constitutes that backstage on stage, sort of front stage, as a way of sort of engaging the audience in a sort of a conversation, in sort of an imaginative space about the sort of their relationship to reality and their perceptions of reality versus what's actually going on.
Yeah. So there's this way of needing to manage what's shown and what's not shown. Okay, am I understanding you correctly? In the relationship
Yes.
between these things, yeah.
So for instance, in the trick, I mean, there's a number of ways where you sort of demonstrate a sort of in my case, really accurate theory of mind of your own audience, and sort of preempting particular sort of assumptions about the audience, about how the trick is working, by sort of actually inviting them, quote unquote, backstage to see what's actually going on, right? So
look at the cards, here they are.
Yeah. So you ask to look at the cards. I even noticed that you look away when you're doing it, even though we haven't actually talked about the fact that you can see the cards in the monitor, but you've sort of already assumed that we've sort of picked up on the fact that you do have a monitor, and we're already sort of inculcated enough into the culture of Zoom to be looking at eye contact and stuff as a way of managing our social relationships, and you've sort of incorporated that into the trick.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of these conventions, like even conventions that I'm not even thinking about how we witness. Yeah.
And I think that in the case of Zoom in particular, that the thing that's interesting about it is that it sort of has a very sort of harsh set of boundaries in terms of what we can see, and that's sort of what that stage is. And even though you're sort of using two different camera angles in your performance, it's still sort of, it's very interesting, right? How the three-dimensional nature of most sociality is weirdly sort of captured in these sort of box-like sort of snippets, which I guess sort of gives you, in some ways, sort of more room for maneuver in terms of your magic, but then also sort of probably constrains you in some interesting ways too. Yeah,
right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because there isn't the ability to kind of, if we were doing this live, right, you'd be there, right, and we'd kind of move around, and that would be part of the performance, would just be our space here together and working that space. But here I'm kind of like I'm very flat, aren't I?
Yeah. But this is particularly interesting. I'm thinking of the work of Susan Lee Starr, who writes about infrastructure as a concept and how it often becomes visible upon breakdown. And so I think that Zoom is interesting because it allows us to think about face-to-face interaction in ways that we wouldn't think about. But then also I think magic is also in interesting ways plays with this idea of breakdown and about surfacing things that we previously didn't see or think about, and for basically bringing to the surface aspects of sociality that would normally be submerged sort of by sort of creating these sort of crises within the space of the magic trick, where your normal sense of how physics and sort of materiality operates are violated. And then that forces you to sort of think about how that was actually working all along.
Great. Okay, let me ask a different kind of question, not the question of are you convinced by what you see, but I want to ask the question of whether you're seeing more than what's taking place. And to get into that, maybe I'll just recount an experience I had when I first started doing Zoom-based magic. And yeah, the first session I had, basically I had a camera that was very much focused on my hands, and I was manipulating the cards, right? And I thought people would want to see the, the close-up, what's happening. But someone in the audience said, she says, no, don't do that. Pull back and let us be able to see all of you. And one of the reasons why she wanted that was just because she wanted to see a person and not just some hands. Okay. But another observation she made was very interesting. And that was that even though she knew when I was performing that I wasn't looking at her, she still wanted to feel as if I was looking at her. And this comes from an experience she had earlier in the week where she did a Zoom lecture. There were, I think, 100 people there, someone speaking right into the camera, and she's looking at them. And she has this sense of connection. And she had that sense of connection, even though kind of rationally she knows, right, this person is not looking at me. There's 100 people here. Okay? But she still valued this sense of someone looking into her eyes and her being able to look back. Mm. Yeah, and I thought that was really interesting because for however many minutes it's been now that I've been talking, okay, I've had to stare into a camera lens. This is what I'm doing now. And I'm not looking at any of you, and I haven't been for some time. Okay? If I want to look at you, okay, now I'm looking at Abby, okay? And so it's interesting, right, in this kind of performance situation, to have a connection, to have that possibility of connection, I have to kind of turn away. But when I'm able to establish connection to see how you're actually reacting, okay, so Jeff is nodding in his head, Paul is nodding his head, okay, I know this now, right, I'm looking away. I'm looking at my monitor. Okay, so anyway, how is this whole business of kind of making a connection, how are you experiencing this?
I'm still nodding my head, even though I know that you're not looking at me.
Yeah.
But you know that I'm not looking at you in that case too. Are you looking for this kind of connection? Do you value it, even though you know, right? I just told you, but you probably guessed it before.
I'm still nodding in encouragement.
Yeah.
Paul, are you feeling a connection, even though in some sense it's not there?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Yes. I'd like to mention more, but I just need to think about that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So I can spend some time looking this way, okay? Because now I'm making more. I feel like I'm making more of a connection with you. So Abby, what are you thinking about all this? Is this okay? Can I just do this the whole night? Look at you.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose there's also, as you say, kind of reflecting back on non-Zoom life as well, in the sense of, I wonder, it seems like when you're talking to us and it looks like you're paying attention, you're actually staring at a camera, and now you're looking at us, but it looks like you're not paying attention. But you also wonder how that is mirrored in kind of non-Zoom kind of real life as well, in the sense that sometimes it can appear that people are actually really disinterested, but maybe they are really listening to what you're saying. And conversely, people may be nodding along and smiling and nodding, but not actually taking that much of an interest. So, that's probably not just a Zoom phenomenon, actually.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Wonderful.
Okay. Well, it's also interesting to sort of look at the difference between how you react when you have the kinesthetic feedback and when you're sort of looking into the camera, right? And I would actually say that in some ways your body movement is more sort of natural when you have the kinesthetic feedback from us and sort of how we're reacting and moving, and then you sort of get into the sort of the rhythm of our movements. Whereas when you're sort of looking at the camera, you're much more sort of rigid because you don't have that sort of feedback.
Yeah, right. Okay, and have you noticed that as part of what we're doing here?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a more general thing that I see in Zoom world, right? But definitely, yeah, in this.
Okay, lovely.